So let's take a look at what we need to make our bunting. So I have a pre-printed panel here by Little Johnny, and this has 40 Union Jack flags printed onto it with outlines printed as well, so you can easily cut those out. And you can use this to make a 40 flag garland or a 20 flag garland with the bunting on both sides. And I'm going to do the 20 flag option so that the bunting will look nice from both sides. I've also got my white thread. That's fine for sewing this up because you've got white as the background colour. And then I have got 6 meters of cotton webbing. This is 3 centimetre wide, so that when it's folded in half, it's 1.5. This is nice and strong and it won't twist like binding might do. It won't stretch as you're sewing it. So it's really nice and easy to sew with. So that's cotton webbing tape or cotton herringbone tape in white, 3 centimetres wide and 6 meters of that. So that's the only things you're going to need to make your bunting. Now this tutorial, I'll show you how to make the bunting using the pre-printed panel, but of course you could cut your own flags if you wanted to out of any of your fabrics to make some really pretty bunting. It's a great idea for using up your scraps and decorating your room. I'm doing these to celebrate the coronation this year, so hence the Union Jack design, but you could use lots of different fabrics, Christmassy ones at Christmas time. You could use beautiful pastels for Easter, some gorgeous brightly coloured prints, deck chair prints, kind of seasidey prints for the summertime, nautical prints, anything goes. And the bunting really does lift your space, whether it's your sewing space or for a garden party or a Christmas party, whatever you're doing. Bunting is a nice, easy project that you can sew up in an afternoon and you have something really nice to keep. So let's take a look at the simple steps that you need to follow to make this bunting. So first of all, we want to cut out our flags, and you see you've got a nice black outline printed onto this panel that you can cut around. I will give you the dimensions. So each of these flags measures 21 centimetres across the top and 22 centimetres at the longest point. So it's almost a square, 21 by 22, and you've got a 1 centimetre seam allowance around the edge. So if you're making it out of your own fabric and you want to create a template, but of course, you know, you can make bunting any size. This is fairly large. So what we want to do is we're just going to cut around that black outline. You want to cut around the black outline rather than round the printed panel on the flag, because of course this margin here is your seam allowance. So if you're a beginner sewer, this is a really great project because it's really, really easy. And like I say, you can use any fabric you like. I'm using this pre-printed panel, and this is available to buy as a panel from Flying Bobbins, or you can buy the kit, which includes the panel, the thread and the cotton tape, plus that comes in a gift box, and it comes with the instructions too, and I shall pop a link below. If you've got a rotary cutter, you may find it quicker to cut out with your rotary cutter. I'm just using my scissors. There's one down, 39 to go. So just be careful when you're cutting it out that you don't, you've not got your fabric folded up underneath. Pop the radio on, pop the TV on, and just enjoy your cutting out. Like I say, it might be a bit quicker with a rotary cutter because you could quickly whiz through. But I'm just going to use scissors. Find it quite therapeutic and relaxing. There's my flags all now cut out, so all I want to do now is to pair them up. So I should take 2 flags and put them right sides together. I know sometimes they're called flags, sometimes they're called pennants. When it's bunting, I'm just going to call them flags for now, because they've got the flag print on them as well. So I'm going to put those two right sides together, matching up the raw edges, and I can just pop some clips around the outside edges to hold them together. So I want to do that with all of my flags. And then once I've done that with all of my flags, and if you haven't got enough clips or pins to hold them all together, you could do them in batches of 5 or something like that. Once they're all secured together, then you're going to come down here, and we're going to sew all the way down here, pivot at the end, and then sew all the way back up again. And then we turn them through and give them a press. So that way we have the nice print on both the front and the back side. Now, if you weren't going to do that, if you wanted to make a longer garland with 40 flags on it, then what you could do is take your bunting and simply fold and press back this edge here and stitch that down. That means that your bunting will only look nice from one side, but if you wanted a longer garland that you were going to hang up against a wall, for example, so no one's ever going to see the reverse side, then you could of course use this panel to make a strip of 40 flag bunting. But I'm going to do it the conventional way, which is to sew around the edge and bag out. That way you get nice attractive bunting on both sides. So I just want to line that up. So it's a 1 centimetre seam allowance all the way around, and it's quite easy to line up actually, because you've got your raw edge there on the 1 centimetre or 10mm line, but you've also got your edge of your print there guiding you. So I'm just going to sew with a regular straight stitch. I'm going to come all the way down to the point on my bunting. So I've got a universal needle in, just straightforward, sewing the cotton here, cotton fabric, and sew with a straight stitch of 2.4 in length. Just coming to the end here. So when I come to the end, I'll just slow down, and I want to pivot at the bottom of that red triangle there, at the bottom of my bunting flag. And then I'm going to, with the needle down, I'm going to lift my presser foot and swivel round there. And then we come back up the other side. And you just want to finish that with a back stitch. There we go. So you're just sewing along those 2 diagonal edges, and you leave the top open so that you can turn it through. So you want to repeat that for all of your flags, and then we'll turn them all through and give them a press. So there's all of my flags now sewn up. So I've got 20 all together. The next thing that we need to do is just to turn them through to right sides. So before you do so, you can just trim away a little bit of the excess fabric at the point there. That will help you to get a nice sharp point. Don't worry about trimming down these seam allowances because they're quite narrow anyway. Just that point really that you want to trim down. And then we want to turn this through to right sides. So turn that through. You can get a point turner or a pointy but not too sharp object, like a knitting needle for example, or a chopstick, and just push that point out. Don't push it too hard because then you'll end up with a sort of a funny, you know, you might stretch the fabric and end up with a funny shape, but just sort of push it through. And then you want to flatten that out and then just press it. To make sure that that seam is nice and rolled out to the side there. Once you've done that, you've got your your flag ready, and you just want to do the same thing now for all 20 flags. So you've got 20 like this. Don't worry about what's going on at the top here. You can trim off those little extra fold over bits if you like, but once we come to put that into the tape, that raw edge there will all be hidden. So go ahead and turn through all of your flags, and then I'll show you how to attach them to the tape. There's all my flags made. So I've got 20 flags there ready to attach to the webbing. So before we hop on back over to our sewing machine, there's a little bit more pressing to do. It's a bit laborious, but we just want to take our webbing and press it in half lengthways, all the way down the length of the webbing. So switch the iron back up again, and I just want to press that in half all the way along. So once that's all pressed in half, then I'm just going to roll it back up again so that it's a bit easier to manage. So there's my bunting all rolled up there, my webbing rather all rolled up there. I want to put my first flag a little bit in because I want to leave myself with some tape there to hang up my bunting. So I'm going to come in, say 40 centimetres, and then put my first flag here. So just pin that in place there. So the first flag starts 40 centimetres in. The raw edge is levelling up to that centre fold there, and then eventually that will fold over to conceal all the raw edges. Now, I'm not going to pin all of the flags in place. What I'll do is I'll take my pile of flags over to my sewing machine with my tape, and I shall just put them in place as I go, leaving a few centimetres gap between each flag. So let's head on over to the sewing machine now, and we'll get those flags sewn into the webbing. So I'll just pop that under my machine there. My presser foot can sit nicely at the centre of that webbing. Hand my needle down just to hold that in place. And I will just do a few stitches forward and a few stitches back to begin with. And then I want my flag to be with the raw edge level to the fold. So I'm just approaching the end there, so I need to get my next flag along, and I want to leave about a 3 centimetre gap. So let's measure from the corner of that flag there, 3 centimetres in, mark that position there, and that's where I want my next flag to start. So I'll just continue, I won't start and stop sewing, so it's only a short while. And there we go, and I'll just unravel my webbing as I go. Match up the raw edge of that flag with the fold there, and then measure again 3 centimetres, mark that position, my next flag ready in place. I prefer to do it like this rather than pinning all the flags in place before I start sewing. I'm just going to continue like that for all 20 flags. And I'm just coming to the end now. That's my last flag. I'll just go a little bit beyond the top of the flag and then do a back stitch. And all the flags are now sewn in place. So what I want to do now is I'll put my flags all to my side there. So I've got all my flags in a little pile there to my right hand side, and then I just take my tape and fold it in half, and then all the way down the length of that cotton webbing tape I'm just going to sew it closed. So to begin with, obviously you've got this bit at the beginning and end with no flags on it, and in a minute we'll make a hanging loop with that. But I'm just going to sew along the edge, so I'm just sewing here. And you could use binding as well, so if you're using binding, then just the same principle. I'm coming to my first flag here, so just make sure that everything's tucked in and that tape is folded in half. And I'm just going to sew along the edge of that tape. And I shall just continue that along the full, let's move you up a bit, along the full stretch of the bunting, along the full length of the bunting. Just fold the tape in half and sew it down. So I'm just approaching the end now, just approaching my last flag, so I just keep that bunting folded, that webbing folded in half, and then once again I'll just continue sewing all the way down. And we can just give that a really nice press just to tidy up everything. It's where you folded over your cotton tape, just give it a nice press along there. So once that's pressed, just measure the bit at the end. I've chopped out mine down so that I've got 40 centimetres on either side. It's just enough that I can hang my bunting up. So let's just fold the bunting up nicely so that it's ready to pop away, and you can just get that out when you need to, when you want to hang it up somewhere. There we are. So I've got all my flags folded up there. Trim off any thread tails that you might notice, and keep it looking nice and tidy. And then I've got a 40 centimetre length at either edge here, so I can just press that back. So I'm pressing that back by about 5-6 centimetres, let's say 6 centimetres there. I'll hold that with a clip, and then I'll do the same on the other side. Just press that back by 6 centimetres. And then I just want to stitch across there just to hold that down, and then what that will do is that will give me a nice loop, so that if I've got something to hang my bunting on, a hook or something, I've got something there to hang it on. There we are. So I've just folded that up by 6 centimetres, and I'll just tuck in the raw edge there as well to make it extra neat. Pop that under my sewing machine, and then I'll just do a few stitches forward and a few back, and then forward again, I'll trim off those threads, and there you've got a nice hanging loop, and your raw edge is tucked away there. And I just repeat that for both sides, so I'll do the same on the other side, and your bunting is all done. And there it is, all done. So that makes about a 5.5 metre stretch of bunting based on this flag size, with a 3 centimetre gap here and about 40 centimetre stretch at the end there, with a little 6 centimetre turning for the loop. So I hope you enjoyed that tutorial and you enjoy making your very own bunting.